Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Controversy is trailing President Tinubu's appointment of Ola Olukoyede as the new chairman of Nigeria's anti-graft agency, the EFCC, with many suggesting that he is not qualified for the job. Analysts argue that Olukoyede's appointment is in gross violation of the EFCC Act, but the presidency disagrees. Arise News correspondent Omo Bazuaye reports. Joining us now on the morning show to discuss the new appointment of the EFCC boss. Okay, sorry, we couldn't provide that report by Omo Bazuaye. But to discuss the legality of the process. Now, it's Norrison Quakers, a senior advocate of Nigeria, and Monday Onyekachi Ubani, chairman of NBA Speedo. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us on the morning show. Well, I see Monday Ubani, Dr. Ubani there. Thank you, Dr. Ubani, for joining us. I'm sure Norrison Quakers, SAN, will join us later. So here is the issue. Olukoyede has been appointed. Critics say it's in violation of Section 2, Sub 1, Sub 3, Sub 5 of the EFCC Act, to the effect that he does not have 15 years experience as a law enforcement agent, and also that he's not of the rank of an ASP, Assistant Superintendent of Police, not lower than. That's what the FCC Act says. He having been a lawyer. But the government says, the presidency says, through Ajuri Ngelale, spokesman of the president, that, look, he's been in EFCC for more than 15 years. And to that extent, you know, he's eminently qualified to hold the position. What is the purpose of this controversy? What do you think about it? Is he qualified or not? Does it matter that the EFCC chief has to be, you know, a retired or serving assistant superintendent of police?
Yeah, thank you. In situations like this, you know, when there is an opinion and there's a counter, one would probably advise that sometimes you have to bring also the counter. That's from the government side, who have actually justified the appointment, to also air their own view. Maybe a jury should have been part of this conversation. But from the little I know about the Act, if you look at Section 2, subsection 3, it says that if you must be the chairman of that revered body, you must have been a retired or serving member of having worked in government security agency. I hope that word is sinking in. Government security agency, and it mustn't be below the rank of assistant commissioner of police or its equivalent. Look at the proposition of those who are saying that that is clearly illegal. I mean, the current appointment. They said that, look, he has not maybe been in the mainstream of the security agency as in the operation of any of the security agencies, or have been in the rank of assistant commissioner of police. That is the argument. But look at the argument of the government. Says, look, he has been in the security agency of EFCC for up to 15 years. And the word there is or its equivalent, that it must be within the rank of assistant commissioner of police or its equivalent. When the word or its equivalent is used, so it gives you a room to say somebody of this particular standard or statute is also qualified, apart from being ACP and all that. That may be where the government has actually used in order to say, look, if this man has been in a government security agency, you know, which EFCC represents, and probably has also attained the level of assistant commissioner of police, because the word or its equivalent is used, then they are able to justify that he is eminently qualified to be the EFCC chairman. But remember that this particular process will pass through the Senate screening. And the Senate, has many lawyers there. The leader of the House is an eminent lawyer. The president of Senate, Godswill Akpabio, His Excellency, is a qualified lawyer for many years. So they will look at these provisions of the Act and know whether there has been a due compliance by the president of the country in appointing the new person. So it's not something. The appointment is one thing that he has to go through the scrutiny of the Senate for approval, and they will look at that provision you have just mentioned, whether there is a iota of truth that he is qualified. And as I said earlier, the argument will be if you have worked in a government security agency, it didn't say that you must be part of the operation. It didn't say that you must be in operation. That's the Act itself. And then the word equivalent or is equivalent, they may come under that particular dissonance, probably give him clearance. But whatever it is, it's important we look at the two sides of the coin and look at what will happen at the Senate. So all our eyes now will be on the Senate that will carry out this exercise of scrutiny before he becomes an effective and substantive chairman.
All right, thank you so much. It looks like this particular government likes to give lawyers and legal practitioners a lot of work. In one instance, we're trying to deliberate the and now are scrutinizing the Act to see if indeed Mr. Olukoyede is qualified. Now, a number of people have said that in order to avoid these controversies, why didn't the president just approach the Senate with a view to, because even prior to now, that particular section of the Act has been debatable in terms of the provisions, the very strict provisions in terms of the experience of the EFCC chairman. Do you think perhaps it's time to review that in terms of its qualification, why the person must be of the rank of Assistant Commissioner of Police, worked in the government security enforcement agency or law enforcement agency? Those criteria, is it necessary? Does it have to be that way? Or are there other professionals, or as you've mentioned in the instance of Mr. Olukoyede's experience working even in EFCC, could take on that role even without having working as part of the security enforcement agent or law enforcement agent?
I must tell you that is a very intelligent question. You ask yourself, why did we have to create an agency as EFCC? Ordinarily, the work of EFCC is supposed to be done by the Nigerian police. That is, ordinary, all over the world, issue of a crime and crime prevention and prosecution lies squarely with the police. But we now created an agency because of the fact that there were some lapses with the police. We saw some level of incapacity and not meeting up with expectation. Then after creating that agency, you now put a specific provision that will now make you to still rely on the Nigerian police in order to appoint the chairperson. And over the years, I can tell you that people may not have gotten the best in terms of corruption fight in the country. Some of them are doing well, but if you do overall judgment of whether EFCC has succeeded in curbing corruption, and there was a reason for even setting up that agency, it's mainly for corruption in the public service. Whether they have done that, you are in a better position to pass a judgment. So could it be, that you do that kind of a thing and then still want Nigerian police to be the one to head an agency that you are running away from Nigerian police, and you now, created a body and say it must be a serving a police officer or a retired police officer to head that agency? That again is clearly contradictory. So I think that if there is any ambiguity whatsoever, there is nothing wrong for a swift reaction in terms of amendment of that particular act and say, look, let's change that particular list and allow some other professions, that are qualified to carry out this responsibility. We have tried the Nigerian police over time, starting from Ribadu. It has been Nigerian police officers that have manned that agency. Can we say we have gotten satisfaction, from those people in that particular security arrangement, in manning EFCC? The answer again is clearly lies in the hands of the public, So why don't we now, do a radical change, and amend the law if there is any ambiguity, and say specifically for many of the professions that can man the agency should be in charge in order to give us effective, accountability with regards to that agency that was created. So I think that would be the best thing with those lawyers that people in Senate. I think that we should look at that law once again. If there is any ambiguity whatsoever, we should be able to clear it immediately and amend the law It just requires the concurrence of the House of Reps, and it becomes, it's not a constitutional provision, it's an act that can only be done within 2 or 3 days if they so desire. And they remove the ambiguity. But for now, as I said earlier, there will be a devil's advocate and say, look, if this man has put off 15 years in an agency of EFCC, and there was no specific provision that he must be in the operation of a security agency before, he used the word also, or is equivalent, they may want to probably latch in on that and give Ola a clearance in the Senate. That's what I think.
Okay, Mr. Ubani, so let me now be that devil's advocate. Let's make that argument, because this is their argument that they make. So number one, they talk about the fact that, let's underline the word cognate experience. Is it cognate experience in relation to the activities of the EFCC? Because when you look at it, he was chief of staff, and cumulatively he's not spent close to 10 years in the system. So is it cognate experience in relation? But this is the way they couch the cognate experience. I'm talking about those that appointed him. They said he has 22 years experience as a lawyer in matters of fraud and other ancillary issues around fraud. So they said based on that, they're going to couch his cognate experience as if passing the cognate experience threshold. So can you explain the phrase of the cognate experience there? Then we now go to the other part of the argument that says, in any government security agency or the police. So probably you can now itemize the security agencies as registered by the laws of our land. Let's now juxtapose this in the argument, because those are the only two great thresholds. But the way they couch their own argument is cognate experience, that he's been a lawyer and he's done a lot, as regards fraud and all of that for 22 years. So they said that also nullifies the argument of the 15 years cognate experience. Can you couch those two arguments for us?
As I rightly pointed out, lawyers are given so much job, when things like this happen that are not too clear, and then you have to enter into all manner of things in order to give an explanation.
Okay.
Now,
Mr. Ubani,
the act itself was specific.
Mr. Ubani, just real quickly, yes. I just want to acknowledge the fact that...
Yes, are you not hearing me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Just sorry for interrupting you. I just want to acknowledge the fact that Mr. Norrison Quakers is with us. And I also like to ask him that question I asked you after you finish answering it, on the definition of cognate experience and also the definition as regards governmental agencies. So you can answer yours first. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. My own is, let's look at the law. Let's look at the letters of the law. What is the provision in the Act, Section 2, subsection 3? It says the person that will be the EFCC chair must be either as a serving or retired member of the government security, use the word government security agency, use that word, government security agency. And then that person must not be below the position of assistant commissioner of police or its equivalent. So any interpretation we're going to give to this person that we have now appointed must meet this specific provision of the Act. Now, ask yourself, has he been a worker of any of the government security agencies? Has he been a worker of any of the government security agencies? That is one. Has he put in up to 15 years? Because it says he must have put in up to 15 years in that security government agency. Very important. Then that person must be of a level of ACP, Assistant Commissioner of Police, or its equivalent. So if we now itemize these things, and government says, oh, this man has put in up to 15 years in any of the security government agency, and that even if you look at his position, he is of equivalent of Assistant Commissioner of Police. So if he meets up that requirement, as I said earlier, the Senate will look at this, this provision of the law critically and look at whether there has been a satisfactory compliance by the government with this particular appointment, and then probably go ahead and give him clearance. But if there is not, they can also point it out. But as I said earlier, if there is any ambiguity, which Ayo has already pointed out, why don't we do the needful most of the times, by just amending and removing any ambiguity and start giving us less job, as lawyers, because most times there must be a lawyer on the other side who will now, pontificate and give good reasons why this appointment will stand. And then the other people and all that. So to avoid all those ambiguities, try to make the law as straight as possible, and then try your actions always to be in compliance with the law. That is a little I can say. 15 years, equivalent of ACP, working as ACP or its equivalent. That is what the law says. If the man meets up that requirement, because they say he has been in the EFCC for up to 15 years. If he hasn't been up to that means that there is a compliance. He has been in government security agency, but the issue now is that others are arguing. He must be in the operation. He must be in the act of arresting, prosecuting.
Mr. Ubani, he has not been in
the EFCC
for up to 15 years.
Yes.
He has not been in the EFCC for up to 15 years.
You are just telling me now. So I think that, yes, I'm just hearing this, So if the law says 15 years, so we need to look at what, may have made government to probably put him there, as the EFCC chair. They must have looked. They have Attorney General. They have all the lawyers that work in the government here.
Mr. Norrison Quakers, good to have you, sir. Cognate experience, is it in relation to security work or security agency work? Can you also re-register for us, security agents in the country? And also the first part that talks about he must have been, 15 years experience. So, but we know, we've been able to establish that he has not spent 15 years experience, he doesn't have 15 years experience in the EFCC itself. Can you explain your part of all of this to us? Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Rufai. Good morning, Dr. Abati.
Morning.
The challenge we have really is interpretation given to this section 2, sub 1A, 1 and 2, all to 3. In the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission Establishment Act. Now, I have the act with me, so I don't want to speak without looking at the provisions of the law. Now, section 2, sub 1A says, a chairman who shall be the chief executive and accounting officer of the commission. Roman figure 2 says, be a serving or retired member of any government security or law enforcement agency not below the rank of Assistant Commissioner of Police or equivalent, possess not less than 15 years cognate experience. Now, the issue is the 15 years cognate experience. Is it in relation to his work as a security personnel? Or is it in relation to years of post experience in terms of professionalism? My take on this is that the person must have had 15 years of cognate experience in terms of work and in terms of professionalism. So it is not limited to security experience. That's my take on it. But again, I must also recognize the point that was made by Dr. Ubani as regards to avoid conflicting perception or interpretation of this particular section, that there's a need to amend to give room for clarity. But for me, the experience here has to do with professionalism. This person that we're talking about, so what has been his experience? How long has he been a professional, for instance, in order to qualify for the appointment? So that's one level of looking at it. The other level again is he has been in the system. I learned he's been there. He was there in 2016 to 2018 as a chief of staff to the then executive chairman. And then in 2018 to 2022, he became the executive secretary. So give or take, he has been in the security architecture of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, or as an agency saddled with the responsibility to investigate financial crimes. Now, the sum total of the period that we have recognized as an officer of the commission is not up to 15 years. But in terms of experience and expertise, I had to read up on him. 22 years post-call experience is what I found he has had. So plus or minus, the experience that he's talking about is experience in terms of work, in terms of professionalism. Is it suitable? Is it qualified in that regard? My answer to that is yes. Has he also been in the system? Can he qualify as one who had been in the system to be nominated or appointed for the office? My answer to that again is yes, because he has been in the system. Because if you look at section 2 sub 3, particularly section 2 sub 2, Roman figure 2, be a serving or retired member of any government security or law enforcement agency. He has been in the EFCC. So his being appointed is just a continuation of someone who had been in the system. Now, mind you, officers of the EFCC have been vested with the power of the police pursuant to Section 4 of the Police Act. And the act on this, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission Act on this, is also very clear. Section 8 sub 5 and I think Section 41 of the Act is clear that they are vested with the power of the police. We also carry arms. Now, by virtue of his erstwhile position as Chief of Staff and also as Executive Secretary, he can't qualify. Maybe by virtue of that, his rank will be seen to qualify as an Assistant Commissioner of Police. Okay. Mind you, this, I don't know why we're having this. When Abdul Rashid Bauer was also appointed as the chairman of the commission, where there was a lot of hue and cry. And then at the end of the day, the dust settled. And they continued to work until this current administration, and from what we read in the papers, he voluntarily resigned his appointment as chairman. So for me, I don't think it's an issue that should be overflogged. You look at the Act is very clear. And for me, I think he's qualified to be appointed as the chairman of the commission.
Okay, Norrison Quakers, SAN, thank you for joining us. I get your point. And it's good you refer to Abdul Rashid Bauer. Abdul Rashid Bauer actually was a product of the EFCC cadet school. So I don't know whether the issue was whether that was of the rank of an assistant commissioner of police or not. So we have a precedent, a precedent in this particular regard. And I also get your point, Dr. Ubani, saying maybe we need to take a second look at the law. One of the major problems they have in EFCC today is that, people are saying, look, you don't have to bring everybody from police to the EFCC. And that's why they have their own school. And they are trying to see that people can grow from within the system. Olukoyede's appointment justifies that expectation, which is a major sentiment within the system. However, I want to draw our attention to something else. Protests about Section 14, sub 3 of the Constitution. Arewa Youth Forum and Uriwa, both of these groups have been saying, why is President Tinubu appointing a Yoruba man? And that this is after a pattern. Why must the EFCC chairman be a Yoruba man? But some people are also saying, well, this is the first Christian, first Southerner that will be there. And that Southerners also have a right to be EFCC chairman, and that Christians also have the right to be EFCC chairman. That only Northerners and Muslims cannot be the ones heading the place. That's the other matter, that is out there in the public domain. Norrison Quakers, let me start with you, and then we'll go to Dr. Ubani.
Dr. Abati, thank you for the overview and then your comment in that regard. But having recourse to Section 2, sub 3, and it reads, the chairman and members of the commission other than ex-official members shall be appointed by the president, and the appointment shall be subject to confirmation of the Senate. Simply, the president has exercised the power vested in him pursuant to Section 2, sub 3, and has nominated someone for appointment. The appointment is inchoate until it is confirmed by the Senate. Now, question is, I don't think we should bring ethnic factors into all of this. If you read section 153 of the 1999 Constitution as regards statutory bodies established by the Constitution, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission is not one of such bodies. Again, if you look at section 154 of the Constitution, that gives the president power to appoint chairmen and members of the body. Again, you see the clause there, or the provision there, that it must also again be subjected to confirmation hearing by the Senate. In other words, has the president done anything that is unconstitutional? As far as I'm concerned, he hasn't. Now, mind you, when the immediate past president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, in the person of Major General Muhammadu Buhari, appointed Rashid Bawa, there was some comments, and then at the end of the day, when it went for hearing, the Senate confirmed it. I also believe, and I share the sentiment of many, the time has come for us to also put other people from other parts of the country. It doesn't necessarily mean whether it's from the southwest, of the southeast, from the south-south. From inception till this current appointment, the place has been dominated by people from a particular ethnic group and a particular sector of the Nigerian polity. And we cannot continue as a nation in this manner. So if the president, in his discretion, has appointed someone from the southwest, question is he qualified to occupy that office? Has he gone through the mill to be appointed as the chairman of the commission? My humble answer is yes. And I don't think there should be any hue and cry concerning this. You see the track record. From what I learned, he has also gone through some sort of in-house training while there, training as regards fraud. So he has been empowered by the commission. I don't know how long he's been appointed, but what I know is at some point he was chief of staff to the SY chairman between 2016 to 2018, and then the executive secretary between 2018 to 2020. So you cannot be appointed if you have not been in the system in that manner. Same thing with Abdul Rashid Bawa, right? Someone in the system was appointed, and there was some who are crying. Then at the end of the day, the dust settled. So for me, I think the appointment is in order, and I don't think it can be questioned. It's the president's prerogative, and he has exercised it pursuant to the provisions of the Constitution and also the Enabling Act.
Okay,
Norrison
Quakers, I get your point. Yeah. Let's go back to Dr. Ubani. Olukoyede has been a law enforcement, within the law enforcement system for some time. He's a lawyer, 22 years, post-call, and what do lawyers do? Okay, I know there are rogue lawyers, but lawyers as officers in the temple of justice also help to enforce the law if they are not rogues, because we have seen so many rogues compelling us to ask for code of conduct review and discipline. But the point I raised about federal character, do you think there is an issue there?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Ruben. I certainly align myself with the succinct submission of the learned sake, with regards to the legality of the appointment, by the president of the country. But I want to say this. These issues like this touches on the unity of this nation, that, the fact remains that we are not yet a united country. Almost every appointment in Nigeria is looked at from the lenses of whether he's an Igbo man, Yoruba, or an Hausa, Fulani. And that has been how we roll in this country, And I think that leaders need to do more. For us as a nation to really think like one nation, where anyone that is appointed is looked at once as a Nigerian, first and foremost, and that the issue of whether he's competent to carry out that responsibility should actually be the responsibility of citizens when viewing any government appointment that has been made, and not from where he comes from, even if those people will not directly be beneficiary of that appointment. They just want to make noise. Oh, the Christian is not appointed, the Muslim is not appointed, and all that, So that's how we roll in this country. And I think we need to do something fundamentally right in order to address the issue of our unity as a nation. Having said that, I am excited, that for once a lawyer is appointed to head that particular agency. And let us see the operation of EFCC from now onwards under the headship of a lawyer who understands the issue of fundamental human rights of a citizen. Even if somebody is accused of a crime, the law has prescribed method of investigation, and that investigation must be done with the mindset that this person also enjoys some fundamental human rights as provided in the Constitution and not an animal. I have seen a situation where security agencies will invite somebody without any iota of investigation and then begin to fish for evidence, different from what we see in other nations that employ technology, high level of intelligence, high level of investigation that requires skill, and they don't call you in until they have done 85% of investigation and are sure that that particular crime has been established. But here, we see a situation where security agencies will just arrest and then begin to fish and then keep you in a long detention without any reason whatsoever, without recourse to the constitutional provision. So I want to see a lawyer, man EFCC and do things differently. So I'm excited about this new appointment of this man who happens to be a lawyer. And I know that things will change in terms of investigation and also ensuring that we secure conviction, not necessarily just going to court for going sake. Before you do carry somebody to court, a proper investigation must have been done. You must have established crime, elements of crime, before you bring it before an impartial judge who looks at it and says that has been proved beyond reasonable doubt and go ahead to convict. The moment that investigation is not done properly, which is what goes on most times, the accused person will be let off by the court and they now start blaming the judges and others. So I think that we now will experience, I believe, and it's a hope. I'm just praying. It's a prayer point for me that this young man who has just been appointed will justify the confidence that has been imposed upon him to do the right thing within EFCC and get crimes, busted, criminals prosecuted efficiently in the system, and then get this country once again back to us, because Nigeria belongs to all of us. Crime of corruption has taken over this country, and that's why we're not making any progress. So for appointing such a person who happens to be a lawyer, so much confidence is reposed upon him, and I know and I believe that he will not fail the nation. That's my prayer point.
All right, we have just a few seconds to go before we wrap up, and perhaps in just a statement from both Mr. Quakers and Dr. Ubani. You talked about him being a lawyer and the advantages of having the chairman of the EFCC having legal experience. How about the part of investigation and leading a team of perhaps people who are primarily police officers, law enforcement agencies? How will that work? Are you confident about his ability to be able to lead such a team? Mr. Quakers first, please.
He is not going to be the one to carry out. Okay, sorry.
It's okay. You can go ahead, please, Dr.
I may speak on this. Okay.
Sorry for the confusion. Go ahead, please. Dr. Ubani, you can continue.
To be the head of this particular agent. Yeah, he is called upon to be the head of this very important agency. And I understand he has a background in fraud and investigation, going by his cognate experience, profile. He has experience in issue of fraud detection, and then has been in the system also, and a very profound, and sound lawyer too. So I think that his job is to assemble the best crack of team that can carry out investigation, and then he must be able to know the element, because lawyer knows the element of offense. Most time, investigators don't even understand the elements of offense they're investigating. If you don't know the elements, you can't be able to tell all your investigation in order to discover whether this person has committed a crime or not. I see most times with this security agent, they know nothing about the elements of the crime itself they're investigating, and that's why they mess up the investigation. So being a lawyer of many years experience, 22 years, and then having worked in fraud thing, he should be able to now coordinate this crack team that has been assembled in FCC, who have been well trained, in order for them to look out for crime, the element of crime, when you are investigating. Not just going for general and intimidating people. No, that is what I expect him to do in this regard. And that's why I say I'm excited that a lawyer for once is now going to head the EFCC. And the right thing will be done in terms of respect of fundamental human rights.
Okay.
Fundamental human rights, very key for me.
Thank you. Mr. Quakers.
Yes, I have a slightly different approach to this. And I recall that when President Barack Obama, during his tenure, visited Ghana, he said Africa's greatest problem and greatest challenge is our inability to build strong institutions that are independent from executive interference and influence. Now, my challenge is this. Yes, we have, for the first time, one who is trained either in the art of investigation, prosecution, etc., has been responsible to oversee the affairs of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. Now, he's described in the act as a chief executive officer. Now, what now happens when he gets there? What happens when he leaves after his tenure? Recall that EFCC has been described as being more effective during the time of Nuhu Ribadu. Now, you also recall that there were also complaints against the institution at that particular point in time. Now, can the institution be allowed to work independently without interference from the executive? And that is something that should give us worry and concern. Mind you, the people who are involved in investigation oftentimes are also policemen. The mindset, again, is the same thing that they have at the regular police post. I recalled what Justice Mohammed Belgore said in Osaho, Federal Republic of Nigeria, that it is desirable to have a lawyer as a police officer. But when you have a police officer who eventually becomes a lawyer, the mindset and the thinking is that of a police officer. How do they do it? Earlier, when Dr. Ubani was speaking, he said it is a common thing here. You arrest and you now begin to fish for evidence. Look at the number of cases that have been lost in terms of prosecution. The cases are not done thoroughly. Investigation is poor. Sometimes it's as a result of perhaps maybe compromise or inability to look deeply into this fact. So if you don't build strong institutions, this is what you're going to get. We must build strong. So it's no longer about the person. It should not be built around individuals. It should must be allowed to work. So anybody that gets there will just continue. It's system driven. Everything is in place. The laws are there. But how do you get the laws to work? It's actually the greatest challenge to us as a people. That's my own worry. It's not about this new person who is being appointed. It's about whether the institution will be strong enough, even after he leaves, to continue with whatever legacy he's able to leave behind. Thank you.
Yes, thank you indeed, Norrison Quakers, SAN. Thank you also, Dr. Monday Ubani. I get your point, Norrison Quakers, SAN. It's not about individuals. It's about building the institution. After all, Nuhu Ribadu is a lawyer. He was EFCC chairman. Mrs. Farida Waziri is also a lawyer. She was EFCC chairman. So if the institution works, we'll get better results. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us.